Good evening. Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live Zoom Q&A for Small Gauge Trauma 2021. I know it's late. I appreciate that you've joined us. With us tonight, we have a pack of brilliant filmmakers whose work you've just experienced. If you can all introduce yourselves and for the sake of association, mention the film that you directed, starting from number one, Gustav.
Hi guys, I'm Gustav, one of the directors of short film The Last Marriage. Johan, the other director, couldn't be here today, unfortunately. Hi guys.
Hi guys, I'm Adam Fair. I wrote and directed Laika, which is my first film, really.
On that scale, that's impressive as hell.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm Josh Logan. I directed The Relic.
And you just celebrated a birthday.
I'm currently celebrating birthday.
Mid-birthday. Oh, great.
Hi, my name is Jorge Sistos, and I wrote and directed La Oscuridad, The Darkness.
Hi, I'm Lucas Paulino, director de Tenant. I'm so sorry for my English; it's horrible. But Danny translate me. He's so smart. Don't worry.
Daniel, do you want to say something?
Yes, hi guys. I'm Daniel. I'm the producer of The Tenant, and I'll be helping translate Lucas as well.
I'm Alexandra Beckman, and I directed Thumb.
Hi, I'm Christopher Poole, and I directed Aria.
Hi, I'm Kjersti Rasmussen from Norway, and I directed Tropeon, which is my second film at Fantasia.
2 for 2.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I have to apologize for the fact that Kjersti's film played without subtitles. It's not by design or intention.
No.
It was, the file was sent that way, and we will replace it for the repeat screening, and we'll give you, everyone who had a ticket tonight will have access to the repeat screening. We'll give you a time code as well if you want to jump in and see Tropeon with English subtitles.
Cool.
Cheers. All right, so starting from number one, Gustav, if you each want to go into a little bit about the genesis of your short and what led you specifically to make this film.
Sure. Well, it's my second short film, and I directed it together with Johan. And it's Johan I'm a part coming from the horror genre a bit more, and Johan is more a drama guy. And the script landed on our feet at the same time, and because the script investigates, it's a comedy. It's a relation comedy that takes place in the zombie apocalypse. So we combined the forces and thought this we should definitely do together. And so it's yeah, it's a film. It's as I said, it's a comedy. It's a like Bergman meets Evil Dead, we said. So we had like a nice contrast there that we could work with. So
Marriage Story with zombies.
Yeah,
but I love how it suggests the idea that marriage, or at least a marriage without passion, or marriage without real connection or dead connection, becomes its own kind of apocalypse.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like this zombie apocalypse. It's just the facade. It's what's happening happening around. It's not really important, but it's there, and it's just everyday life. And I thought that's what I like with the film, that it's that we managed to capture that mundane everyday life in this extreme situation. But it's not extreme anymore. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So very happy. Very happy that we could screen it here. It's a great honor, obviously.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for submitting it. We all love it.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know what else to say. It's a fun, bloody mess.
Indeed, it is. So, Adam?
So the script I had was quite old, but it was because of this pandemic, actually, that the film got to get made, because we dug it out. We thought we can make this during a lockdown, because in the UK, I think it was last February, we got locked down. So we thought this, one actor kind of in a small set, we can actually make this during this pandemic, and with obviously so many special effects, VFX and things in it, we're kind of making it in our bedrooms for a long time. So lots of storyboarding, kind of made the film in storyboard format, put some, some temporary music on, and we're able to show the actors kind of what the film was going to look like before, because some of the VFX were actually finished before we shot the actors.
It's strange how that can work.
Yeah, so they were looking and going, "Oh wow, this is interesting." They could see what it was going to look like. So it was kind of the whole of last year really, just not able to do anything. But
what drew you to make this kind of a story? Because it is very, very unique. I mean, there's only so many space horror films to begin with. It's a very specific subgenre. To make it animal centric and to talk about a haunted national guilt over animal abuse that was once taken as patriotism.
Yes,
it's very profound, I feel.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am obsessed with space and things in general. So it's been a boyhood dream to make a science fiction film. So that was a perfect opportunity. And just the whole kind of that era of space travel when it was kind of kicking off, and there's the space race between America and Russia, and the kind of danger and some of the things that they were doing you would never do now to achieve their goals. And it's just a really, really interesting time. And of course, with the dog, it seems cruel, but I watched a documentary about some of the people involved at the time, and it wasn't like, oh, we'll just put an animal into space and we don't care. They did care about the animal, and they were upset that she didn't come back. It was, there's statues built in her honor.
Yeah, and, she's been on postage stamps.
Yeah, absolutely. So they really did care about the animals that they were using for the experiments. And it just kind of really interested me, hit a kind of button with me, and just that kind of science fiction genre, Apollo 13, 2001, are just kind of films that really kind of resonate with me. There's a kind of grandeur about space travel that I hope I tried to capture in my film, but obviously,
sure,
it was difficult.
Okay.
I hope that explains.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm curious to know how you went about building these sets, but we'll get to that after.
Okay, cool.
So, JM, the Relic.
Actually, kind of similar to Adam. I was going to shoot this before the pandemic. I was actually going to shoot it in March, and then we couldn't, and so everything kind of shut down. And after a couple of months of everyone, on Earth sitting around, I kind of posted it to some of my friends and just posted and said, hey, what do you guys think about rebuilding this whole idea as a pandemic project? Like, how do we do this movie? Like, it's a single location. It's very isolated. Can we actually put this together safely and use it as like a pilot project, a test project, to figure out how we can do this safely during a pandemic? So we took a couple of months and we put the whole thing together very carefully. We did like all Zoom rehearsals with the actors. We had to figure out the whole PPE thing, which was brand new at the time. We built our own white paper. We were one of the first productions approved by SAG to move forward. We were the first film permit issued in Riverside County. We had a health and safety monitor, and I found this amazing location. I mean, the location is everything for most of these movies.
Yeah. I was going to ask, where did you shoot this?
It's called Lawler Lodge. It's up in like close to Idlewild, up in Riverside County. And it's essentially a summer camp. So it's 3 buildings on a completely isolated piece of mountain. It has its own parking lot. It's completely like blocked off from everything else. So we just rolled everything into the parking lot. And then the only thing that went in or out for 5 days was food. And so we were able to keep it very, very safe and very organized. And I mean, we really only had about 14 people that entire time, including the actors. So everybody sort of did everything. and the summer camp slept 60 people. So we just kind of all camped out, and it was beautiful. Like, it was the most like serene, wonderful place to be. There's trees and there was a river, and we could just kind of sit outside on park benches and discuss what we were going to do that day. It was kind of a dream situation.
So did you not shoot during winter? I take it not. I take it you.
Oh no, I shot in June.
Okay. So I was imagining, is this what summer camp looks like in the dead of winter?
No,
there's a really hellish atmosphere.
Special effects.
Fantastic. Well executed. That's great.
Thank you.
Cheers. Jorge, The Darkness. No scary.
Hi.
Hi. Your film's absolutely brilliant, by the way. I mean, I know you know, but I just have to say.
No, I did this film during my second year film at school. So it's my second year film at my school. But the story comes from before going to study. I was working in journalism for Al Jazeera in Mexico. And I was editing all these testimonials about disappeared women and disappearances, like in Guatemala and Mexico and all these places. And a lot of really horrific testimonies, more than like fiction. So that stayed with me for a long time. So I decided to make this piece that was, in a way, I love thrillers. I love like these artsy films that are like more thrillers than horror, or more grotesque. So this was like a very different, but then I decided to go completely into horror because I think it's I don't know, it's in my culture, it's in my city, it's in my family history in a way. So yeah.
It's an extraordinary film, and I just love the approach of taking a supernatural vengeance thriller and turning it into this beautiful melancholic tone poem that still has so much sadness in it, so much grief. Everything about the movie just moved me beyond words. Number 5 is Luca. Yeah, sorry. I just saw you both have the same numbers now, you and Danny, which makes sense, but it threw me off. I apologize. So yeah, Luca, The Tenant.
Bueno, antes que nada es decir que es mi segundo corto además en Fantasia, con lo cual es un honor estar aquí.
It's an honor. It's a second short. Obviously, Lucas's previous short was here at Fantasia as well, so it's a complete honor to have a second one here as well.
It's our privilege. We love your work.
So privilege.
Y bueno, nada, todo viene de mi obsesión por hacer que la gente lo pase jodidamente mal.
Lucas loves making people just have a really bad time. So that's always
No tiene mucho misterio, es básico realmente.
It's really basic. There's not a lot of thought behind that, just make people uncomfortable, really. So
no busco historias de terror con segundos mensajes. Lo que busco de verdad es hacer terror de ese que da miedo de verdad.
Lucas always connects with story in nature. He doesn't necessarily overthink too much in terms of any deeper meaning. He just goes straight for the horror.
Trabajo en publicidad, soy creativo de publicidad, digamos que es el trabajo que me mantiene hoy en día. Y por eso creo que estoy acostumbrado a contar historias muy cortas y que funcionen con un gancho simple.
Lucas works in advertising, so he's
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of what he does is come up with stories that have a quick hook, and very sort of to the point and relatively short. And as someone that has worked with him for a while, I can tell you he just is always generating this quick ideas, very sort of quick hook, and it's very disturbing to hang out with him because he'll just kind of keep coming up with them.
Excellent. And I feel both your films, regardless of the ages of the protagonists, feel like they're coming almost from a child's perspective. They have a certain child's nightmare atmosphere to them or aspect to them.
Los dos de tus cortos, Lucas, vienen desde el punto de vista de un niño, una perspectiva de un niño como con un aspecto de pesadilla.
Sí. Realmente lo que trato, bueno, los niños siempre están justo en este segundo no, pero siempre están muy presentes en todo lo que escribo, porque me aportan muchísimo terror, pero también me aportan humor.
Yeah, kids are always very present in everything Lucas writes and makes. Maybe not so much in this short, but they're always sort of present in some way because they just provide a lot of horror and humor in general. So there's always that sort of childlike sensibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't specifically saying they were children in the Tenet, just that the atmosphere felt like it was from the perspective of a child's dream in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I should ask Belén Rueda, was it difficult to cast her for a short film with such a pedigreed career? Or is she open now to working with short filmmakers?
Lucas, conseguir a Belén para un corto.
Sí, básicamente le escribí una carta de amor.
Lucas wrote her a love letter. We all kind of really.
Y funcionó.
And they worked. She has done some shorts before in Spain, and so yeah, it was just a question of sending her that kind of love letter and kind of going after her. And she was amazing, very professional, very open to doing the short, and she just loves working with young filmmakers and up and coming filmmakers. So she was very open.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic. Alexandra, Thumb.
Hi. Well, it's the first thing that I've directed. I, like Jorge, was a journalist before, and I wrote about the art world. And then I transitioned into being a screenwriter. And when I thought about what kind of stories I would want to tell as a director and having, the whole canvas, so to speak, there were just a lot of crazy stories that I had heard in my time interviewing people and doing research. And one of them was a curator that I knew was trying to put together a show where this sister controlled an archive of her sister and wouldn't let anyone see it or let the work out. And at the last minute, the sister dies and they could include the work. But I was like, why would I just found that really haunting. And I grew up watching horror movies, obviously, as we all did, and immediately jumped to, oh, it must have been cursed. There must be something ghostly going on. And so that's kind of where that was born out of, and wanting to examine a mother-daughter relationship in that context. And Kate, who stars in it, came up with the story with me, and we worked a long time on what that would be and what the art would be like and what the world would be like. And that's kind of where it was born out of.
It's an incredible film. I mean, the way it discusses the complexities of a mother-child, or just I should say parent-child relationship in the context of the madness of the art world is so interesting. The line that is singled out that I just loved so much, it's not named after me, I'm named after it. I mean, that's just so powerful. It's fantastic. I was going to mention as well, I was taken by the way it speaks to issues of ownership, of creation, of legacy. And it's funny because the story that you were referencing, which I read an interview with you recently where you went over that, and it made me think immediately about the filmmaker Russ Meyer. It doesn't happen so often with filmmakers, except in the rare cases where they financed everything themselves. And in the case of Russ Meyer, when he passed away, all of his films, save for 2 that were made with Fox, they were all self-financed productions. And they ended up falling under the care of this person who had contempt for him towards the end of his life, at least it seems so from what people have said. And this person has actively made these films impossible to restore. All kinds of labels have offered tons of money to restore the films. The elements are all with this person, not in a climate-controlled environment. They're left there in some kind of a shed in a humid southern environment. Everything's just rotting away. And numerous major prestige labels have offered to restore the entire filmography, and they're just not being made available. The elements are just not being made available. It's horrifying to imagine that the wrong interpersonal connections at a certain point can just destroy legacy, can completely make everything vanish.
Yeah.
So I love the way your film touches on these kinds of things, and also the cinematographer who have Julius Swain. Just as a side note, we did the international premiere of Lucky last summer.
Yeah.
So it's your second time on the virtual Fantasia screen.
Yeah, I mean, she really, I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. And the look of the film, you know, being about our world and having a super specific look of an artist's house that was left just so as they died, and this kind of ghostly omniscience of the camera. She really was very much my partner in that.
It's fantastic. The details of, I mean, the art direction, the way the actors move in relation to the camera movement. I mean, everything is really beautifully put together. So I realize that's much more a statement. I can't help myself with this one. Thumb really took me. So yeah, 7. Aria, Christopher Poole.
Hi. So the genesis for the idea was when I was writing it, I was obsessed with this video that came out, which was a viral video of this. It was called California Doorbell Licker. Nasty.
Yes.
Practice.
Yes.
You've seen it. Yeah. So it's like, it's basically someone installed like this Ring video doorbell, and their old doorbells on the wall here, like facing it, and they didn't realize this, but every night they were getting this like visitor that was a guy that was coming, and then for like 20 minutes or so licking and making out with their old doorbell and then going away. And because they installed this new doorbell, they didn't, that's when they realized, and they didn't know how long it had been going on for. So that kind of, I was obsessed with that, and kind of got freaked out by it. And then when I was writing it, the more I wrote, the more I looked into sort of Ring and the whole kind of video doorbell kind of technology, which are sold quite cheaply, like server sites. I realized that like there's actually a really sinister element in the technology itself. Mm-hmm. And how a couple of facts I found out were like in the mid 2016, like Amazon allowed, oh no, sorry, not Amazon, Ring allowed their employees like access to all of their all the cameras on their network, so they could see into people's houses, they could see into people's on front lawns and stuff. And like it came out that like people were rating people's attractiveness in their homes, and like like all this kind of weird, unencrypted, sinister sort of privacy.
Yeah, it's the worst kind of violations for this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and they were sharing with the police as well.
Well, that was it. Yeah,
which
so like
profiling problems in certain neighborhoods and all kinds of scary things.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like so in 2019, Amazon signed a deal with 600 police departments to give them unlimited access to people's Ring cameras in certain neighborhoods. It's crazy. So
and the key is to say in certain neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's where it gets really, really sinister. Of what I understand it.
Yeah. So I sort of made the villain in the whole thing the technology itself, because I sort of feel this paranoia a little bit with like Amazon and Google products, and what's the Alexa devices that are like £20, or like why are they so cheap? Well, that's where the genesis of the idea was.
Excellent. The balance, I mean, the way that the balance of tones, the way it begins with a satirical kind of energy to it, and then becomes much more nightmarish and paranoid. Was it always designed to be that way? I mean, how did you find the balance between?
Well, I'm a comedy director, so.
Oh, are you? I wasn't aware. Cool. Okay. I can see the timing is there. So
I went out to write a comedy because I was obsessed with this viral video of a guy licking a doorbell.
Sure.
And then it sort of, when I was writing, I kept walking to my front door and thinking, what would be the creepiest thing if I looked out there, and what would I see? And then, and it just became so creepy that like it's now more horror than it is comedy. Mm-hmm. So and the way I navigated the story was like I knew I was going to have 3 nights. I wanted to escalate, and I just was like, what would be interesting at this point? Like as I get to this point of the story, like what's going to be quite interesting, surprising, and you know, you don't have long in a short film to sort of go into the history of Amazon and all that. So it's just more about like what's going to give that uneasy tone, a bit of comedy, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. It's really, really fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So, Kirsty.
Yes, I come from screenwriting and started directing a couple of years ago. I've always been into dystopia stories. And yeah, I guess the challenge here was this story has been with me for years, and trying to get a huge dystopian world into a short film is not an easy task, but I like the challenge. I also was fascinated with the stories, the old stories and current stories about sacrificing humans for, yeah, like folk horror. I'm a genre writer, and I just finished my first feature film, which is also horror. So I've always been.
I can't wait for
genre. Yeah, me neither. But yeah, dystopia has been like part of my life for 25 years. So I guess it's the it's the mythology around human sacrificing that I think is very fascinating to both read about, but also fantasize about. But yeah, again, the challenge is, you know, when you have a short film, it's not easy to keep it under 10 minutes. Yeah, so that been working on it for maybe 3 years, maybe. So
wow.
Then Corona came and everything was, as everyone else tells, first it was postponed, but then we didn't have anything else to do either. So
everyone's available.
Yeah, I guess everyone's available, and it is possible to do production during Corona. Yeah, as we all probably experienced. So I finally got to make it in December last year. Yeah.
And you submitted it, like, I mean, it was in the spring, so your post was very fast on it.
Yes. Again, we didn't have much else to do.
Fair enough. I have to say, this film and your previous one both have this fantastic sense of having set pieces in wide open spaces that still feel intensely claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that? Or
well, I don't know what to say. It's just that I love huge images. You know, it's like cinematic views and close-ups. So I always try to merge the ones, you know, really close-ups and the cinematic view. Something I've always been fascinated about, close and the widelands.
So the sense of characters being trapped in a scenario.
Yeah,
you know,
in a world.
In the fantastic work.
Thanks.
And was it difficult finding actors, particularly the younger actors, who were able to pull this kind of stuff off?
I had my eye on her for a while, actually.
Oh, okay, that's fortunate. So did you write it with her in mind, I presume?
Yeah, I actually
That's the best.
Yeah. She's only 17, but I think she's going to be,
She's great.
I'm going to use her again.
Excellent. Does she have a bit in the feature?
No, unfortunately not. She was too young for that one.
Ah, okay. So feature number 2, hopefully.
But I have her mother in a role in the feature.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Cool. So these are people we've known for some time then.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the best way to work when you can. That's great.
Talented family, I would say. Yes.
Fantastic. So going back to number 1, so Gustav with The Last Marriage. This is a tacky question, but it always brings out the best stories. So starting with you, and we'll go down numerically. If you can let us know the best and worst or most challenging moment of your shoot.
There were many challenges. We had it was shot in 3 days.
All of that there's a million setups with prosthetic effects and oh my God.
Yeah, I know. So the whole shoot was pretty much quite intense. It was like 9 pages a day. So it was very, very intense, but it was only one location and 2 actors. and a bunch of zombies, of course. But what was the question now again?
Oh, the best and worst, or maybe the most challenging or difficult moment of the shoot.
Yeah, okay. I think the most challenging was actually the final battle.
Right, I can imagine.
Yeah, because they have dialogue, and simultaneously we have this. We need the action to fit with the dialogue, and also we had as you all know, we shot it in the autumn, and we have in Sweden we have not so many hours of sun in the autumn when it's starting to get into October, November. So it was we had like this time challenge that was it was pretty intense. We shot everything like we only had like one take on each scene in the action sequence.
Okay.
We had to nail everything at once. It was like, okay, fuck this. We jump on to the next. We have to keep pushing and going because so it was quite stressful actually. But we had and you know when you're dealing with blood and gore, it's very hard to do reset. So we had to like really,
you won't match anything.
No, we had to really nail everything, and but it was it was very thoroughly storyboarded and everything. So we had a nice it was really fun, but it was also quite stressful actually because we had to do it, and we didn't have a second safety day or something like that, so we had to nail it. But the action sequence was definitely like the most challenging part of the whole shoot, and we had the most nice part was like we had this the zombie crew, the zombies. It was actually some people from in a smaller city outside. In a smaller city, quite close to Stockholm, where we shot it. It was like this.
Espoo?
Sorry?
Could it have been Espoo?
Espoo, no, Örebro.
Okay, no, it's thinking Stockholm. Yeah.
No. But they what is zombie gang? They have like bachelor parties and had paintball stuff with zombies in this setup. So that was a so nice experience because they arrived to the shoot in a bus, the zombie crew and the zombie actors and everything, and they just did their makeup. I briefed them on how rotten they should be and all that, and then it was like magic.
That's pretty fortunate.
What would take like days basically to do makeup on all these people for like a couple of makeup artists. They like makeup. They did their own makeup basically. One zombie making up another zombie, like in a big group. That was amazing, and it's like, of course, it took some time, but it was such a joy, and it was so professional. And we didn't know that from the start of the shoot. We were like, I hope these zombie people are gonna deliver.
Imagine if the zombie people came and it was terrible. We'll just be like, okay, we're gonna have to come back in 2 weeks and figure something out.
It was a bit of a chance, but it was that was a great experience, I must say.
That's amazing.
But, yeah, it was a nice, intense shoot. But and also, like I said, it was we shot 9 pages a day on the script, and it was it was also a joy with the 2 actors. It was so great. They really knew their script, and they really know how to deliver the lines. And because we only had like maybe 1 or 2 takes, and then we had to move on because we wouldn't make it otherwise. So it was, without them, there would be it wouldn't be a good film. It would be quite bad film probably. But the actors really lifted the whole thing, I think.
Oh, they absolutely bring it. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Adam?
Yeah, so I think the best part for me was getting the cast that I wanted. Up in the north of England where we are, I'd written the part of a Russian cosmonaut, and I wasn't sure, I'm going to get someone who can do the accent, who's going to look right. And Anton, who plays the cosmonaut, he sent an audition tape through, and immediately his face was burnt into my brain to the point where I was like, if he can't do this for some reason, I don't want to make the film because he's just perfect. I've got to have this guy. And he was brilliant on set. He wore himself out, got really kind of probably one of these method actors. He'd go away and sit down after a few takes and sort himself out and really got into the part. And it was a difficult shoot probably for him because, it was a skeleton crew under lockdown. Everyone's wearing masks and face coverings and, there's not much of a set there and there's a load of green screen and things. So he performed really, really well. So that was the best part. I'm so happy with the actors that I got. And probably the most challenging part was kind of after getting all the footage into the edit, and there's no special effects. It's all green screen. There's no sound effects or music. And it's like, oh, this looks awful. It's really hard to visualize if it's going to be any good or not. So you're kind of worrying, is this going to be? And it takes so long to finally see it all come together. So that was the most challenging part, worrying that I'd made something rubbish.
Fair enough. I mean, have there been discussions or offers to turn into a feature? It just seems like it would lend itself really well to.
Yeah, well, that was part of the thought process behind it, is making something that kind of looked like it was the opening scene to a huge science fiction epic.
Okay, so it's effectively a proof of concept.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So we're kind of writing at the moment some kind of feature length ideas at the moment. It's quite difficult, but we're getting there. So that is hopefully something that we'll get to do in the future. That's definitely a plan.
Excellent. I think the time is right for space dog horror.
Yeah. Yes.
Great. JM.
First of all, I didn't. Sometimes these things are so informal. I didn't actually say how much I enjoyed all of your movies and how pleased I am to be situated among them. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I have a million questions for you guys that we'll get to later. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you, because I didn't say that at the beginning. It's such an honor to be in Fantasia. It's an honor to be with you guys, and I was super inspired watching the block tonight. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
So I guess nothing ever goes exactly how you plan it when you're shooting something. And we actually we set up for a day, we shot for 3 days, and then we tore down for a day. It was 5 days end to end, but we really only had 3 shooting days. And we had multiple locations because the lodge itself was kind of the central area, and that's where everything was based. But we also had about 100-foot climb to get up to the parking lot where the other outdoor cabin was. So I had planned one day where I sort of divided the script into acts so we could kind of have logical blocks in which we'd shoot it. And everything it shoots so much more slowly than you imagine. And we only had 14 people there. So I did have a first AD who was pushing as hard as he could, but we were also shooting splits. So we would start shooting at like noon and plan to wrap by midnight. We had all the windows tinted out, so we didn't have to worry about the sun going up or down, which was great to be able to control. It was almost like a movie set, so we could really control the light. But we start shooting at noon. We're supposed to start shooting at noon, and then it's like really we kind of start shooting at 1 because everyone's there's in a summer camp kind of environment. There's no one we're all friends, we're all hanging out, and so you kind of each day was like, all right, let's get to work, guys. And we had a blast doing it, but each night sort of ran longer and longer. And the last night, I was supposed to finish shooting the one of the big climactic scenes and then run up to the top of the parking lot where we were going to shoot all the exteriors, because those were 2 different locations. And we had to the plan was to cover the entire outside of the outdoor cabin in fake snow, because it was like, June 30th. So we had these big foam machines, and we had all this fake snow that we had to impregnate with water and then throw on the ground. But like I said, we had 14 people. So we finished, it's not like we had a crew to be up there prepping the entire set so we could just pop up there and shoot it. We had to basically dress the set when we got there. So I finished shooting in the cabin part of it I was supposed to finish at 7, and I think I finished at 11:30. And so then we had to run upstairs and, like, you know, at midnight start dressing the like hundreds of yards of fake snow with foam and all this other stuff. And we threw all the fake snow on the ground and discovered it was slippery like ice. So the actors couldn't actually run on it. Like,
I wouldn't have anticipated that. What was it made of?
It was fake snow that we like did a bunch of research, and all these people are like, it's amazing, because they're using it for snowboarding or something. So of course it's slippery because they're snowboarding. But the actors were not snowboarding. And so the second you put your foot on it, it was like stepping on banana peels. So we had to clear all that away. And then the foam all sank into the sand. So we had no snow on the ground essentially. And so we just sort of had to deal with what we had left. And so I sort of built paths for each shot. Because, you know, by the time we figured out it wasn't going to work, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning. And we had a whole scene to do up there. And then I still had to go back down to the cabin and shoot all the monster close-ups. Because, you know, you always save effects for the end of the day. And even though I used to do effects, and I know you don't save effects to do at the end of the day, we save the effects to do at the end of the day. And so we just ended up having to dress, you know, as much snow as we could pile from one section into the other section so that we could sort of have enough on the ground. And then we had a snow blower machine, which was incredibly helpful. And so it just, you know, it turned my shot list from, you know, what I was hoping would be about 15 shots into five entire shots that I can get that night.
So you're just constantly economizing the shot list on the run.
Exactly. Yeah. And then after we finished all that and we were all super exhausted and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, then we had to go back down and shoot the rest of the monster close-ups.
Right.
So that was a very long and yet rewarding night. We did see the sun come up, but it was the last night, so it was okay.
I will say the effect shots are so well done. I mean, the prosthetics are impressive from top to tail, but also the way they're lit and shot and the way they're edited. And it makes sense to have an effects background. Because every effects artist I've ever known, the most devastating thing for them is turning their effects over to people who just don't know how to shoot it, don't know how to light it, or they come back and say, I love that bit of sculpting. Can you just make it a little bit smaller? Like, they just don't understand how any of the stuff works, you know? And to see, I mean, whenever an effects person gets to direct their own gags, did you do the prosthetics yourself?
It was a small team. It was me and my buddy Matt, and then we had a couple other people that came in to like help us punch hair, and we had one guy paint one of the rubber heads. But pretty much it was. I mean, because we were also still in pandemic time, so it was really like, you know, and we had time. So I was planning to shoot in 2 months, and I was like, well, you know, Matt's got a shop, so I haven't done effects in a decade or more, but hey, you know, let's just hang out at the shop, you and me, and we'll just, you know, see how much we can get done. And it was really fun. It was really fun to get back into effects and make our big trash bag monster and, you know, make some rubber heads. And yeah, it was
very evocative of like Rob Bottin's work and The Thing and stuff like that. I mean,
thank you.
It's so impressive to watch.
Thanks.
Well, fantastic. I did want to ask you also, the fact that the film has such a giant sense of scale and a mythical atmosphere to it, and yet you're very specific to keep things ambiguous. It's a really fantastic approach. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Thanks. It was kind of Lovecraft has always been a incredible inspiration of mine from the time I was in high school. And I've always been super terrified to approach any of his work because it's horror of the mind. It's not horror of the eyes. And so when you read his stories, it's concepts that are terrifying, not visuals. And it's so difficult to get it right on screen. And, you know, none of his stories really, you know, in the early 19th century, the fact that just those things existed was terrifying enough. But there's no, you know, first act, second act, third act. It's just like, and it was scary, and that's it. You just kind of end right there with his stories. And so you see even the successful adaptations of his stories that Brian Usna and Stuart Gordon did in the 80s were
they're very loose adaptations.
It's like you got a first act that was the story, and then you add the rest, you know, what you need to make a movie. I've always found questions a lot more terrifying than answers.
Yes.
And that was the exercise of this movie, was to try and come up with as many questions as possible that would be as entertaining, hopefully, as answers would be. And by the end, you know, you have no idea what's going on, but you know that there was something that happened, and as long as you had a fun ride, then it would hopefully make up for the fact that it has no you know, real conclusion.
I mean, it has a conclusion.
Does it? What is it? How did you interpret the conclusion?
It ends unhappily for your protagonists.
That's true. Yes, that
a
is
decisive moment
I
of a
agree.
god being reborn, and presumably nothing goes well after that.
Or maybe he's just gonna, you know, show up and give everybody flowers. Who knows?
Potentially reverse global warming, actually bring emissions down.
Exactly. The whole point
You're
is that
absolutely
they're
right,
unknowable.
Yes. Cheers. Okay.
Well, my production, I think it went really well. We were gonna shoot 5 days, and we shot 3 days. I got like an amazing, just by coincidence, amazing second and first AD. Some classmates from high school, and then they're professionals right now. They've been in the industry for like a long time. But for me, the process that was like harder was the pre-production, because I'm in New York. I'm coming back to the countryside in Mexico, to my city. Like, life is completely different. It's like slower, everything, time, how people work. So even for locations, try to just have someone to take care of a location, to have the keys of like the school or small things like that. They were trying, like, a lot of people, even from my family, helped me just to contact these people and be in the place at the moment. And then the people from the little town, they just appear like an hour later or like 2 hours later, and they do not appear, you know, like that kind of stuff. And also, because I was also in school, there is this risk management department, which is like really, really tough with the productions. And I had like a geopolitical risk committee, because I also, I come from Michoacan in Mexico, which is a state with a lot of violence, but this is like a huge state, basically. We're like a small European country. So like, we have hotland, and in my hometown, there's nothing happens. So like, and they made me get security from the state and all that stuff. So I had like, in this little town where nothing happens, like policemen with AK-47s, and the people with their kids and horses were like, what is going on here? So that for me was like the hardest thing. I learned a lot, but I think in all this process, as soon as I got into the set, it was like the best thing for me, because all these like bureaucracy, it's what really kills my creativity, and just like yeah, I just can't wait. I'm not, that's the part where I'm not like the greatest producer in those terms. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you speak to your bubble imagery, which I find really evocative in the film? Particularly, you have this fantastic transition or cut where you have the lead woman's depicted through a window. She walks sideways through the frame. The camera pans, and at the same pan speed, you cut to the bubble. This is in the air, and it's just the most beautiful, beautiful moment. But could you speak to the recurring bubble imagery in the film?
Yeah, I thought that there's this sense of apart from like, there's people, we live like in a way like in a bubble, like I think there's this also like sense of how can I express it, because I also have these kids around, and I really wanted to talk about, if we don't really try to work on with this violence that we're like living right now in my country, it's gonna happen to these kids, you know, like sooner or later. Like this is like this kind of like crazy, but there's other filmmakers are expressing in another way. Like I love how David Lynch does it, as an example, with in Twin Peaks and all this. But I really wanted to talk about this hard truth and like show it in a way. I had like a second ending that had other shots that weren't like as successful. There is this Mexican photographer that he's called a photographer of death. I'm a fan of his photography.
A photojournalist?
He's studying journalist, and right now I don't know how his name, but there's image.
Sorry, I was going to ask because there was a collection that came out in the United States of a Mexican photojournalist who specifically was doing crime scenes.
Yes,
and it was a really luridly titled book. I believe it was just called Muerte.
Yes.
Is this that photographer?
Yes, it's the same photographer. This
okay,
guy,
yeah. So I'm a little familiar with the work. It's
This guy started with like a hobby, but he tried to make it very aesthetic, all these photos, and like there was like a huge inspiration in his photos, and specifically one that there was a body, like a corpse, floating into a river, and there's someone taking out the body, and there's like the reflection of the people that are just seeing the complete scene. So I tried to reply that, but it wasn't like that successful. Like when you see a photograph, you think like it's just gonna work as I imagine it. But I saved this ending that it was kind of anticlimactic because it's when they discover her body
right
next day after all these things happen. And I just left as a trailer in my Vimeo page, and it's this little girl that she was her student seeing the body of her teacher. But I thought it was really anticlimactic to finish the film with that. So I just I didn't want to include it in the film. But that was like, I think in the same line, I think for me the metaphor of the bubble, it works that way.
Okay. And the closing imagery of her just returning to the water is so poetic. I mean, it is a perfect final beat to the film, I think.
That was also like a risky shot because my production design, not production design, sorry, makeup, they forgot to take out the lenses from her eyes.
Oh, so the water got trapped behind the lens?
She didn't want it to go like she didn't want to drown. And I was like, go, like shouting. And I felt like the worst director. But then she told me like I couldn't go because like they forgot. But we were like, we wanted that light, we wanted those colors. Those colors are there, like just push them a bit more with the color correction, but that they were there. So like we were okay. This needs to go where we want to. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you.
Number 5. So Luca, the tenant.
Bien, bueno, el mejor momento lo tengo claro. Es el primer día de rodaje a las 6 de la mañana con la primera toma.
Best moment was first day, first shot, 6 a.m. in Madrid.
Básicamente porque está ocurriendo.
Just because it's happening. It's like
right.
And yeah, especially during the pandemic.
Cuando ves a todo el equipo que está ahí, tanto esfuerzo, tanta gente, Belén Rueda, el director de foto, tanto esfuerzo.
Whole crew, DP, Belén Rueda shows up, and we're like, oh, this is actually going to happen. So.
Y ahí piensas, en ese momento piensas, bueno, ya no la puedo cagar.
In that moment, you think, well, now it's all on me. I can't really fuck it up.
I mean, you know you could pull it off, but I hear you.
Es así, esa adrenalina me encanta.
Adrenaline, yeah. Lucas thrives on that. He loves that.
Excellent. Oh, sorry.
No, adelante.
Are there any comments you can give us or details you can share about the feature you're working on?
Lucas, detalles del largo en el que estás trabajando.
Bueno, pues para empezar está siendo una experiencia increíble.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience so far.
Estar metido en algo junto con Sam Raimi es espectacular.
Obviously, working with Sam Raimi is like really, really amazing and rewarding creatively.
Y ver cómo ha nacido una idea de un largo de algo que al principio era tan pequeño es como mágico.
Yeah, and just it's purely magical to conceive something as a short and then to see how you can expand on it and see it sort of grow is really amazing.
Justo ahora acabamos de terminar el guión y bueno, ahí estamos esperando a que pasen cosas.
Yeah, the feature is like it's been a long process of like making sure the script was right and we're at that point of like with the script finished. I will add, as from a production point of view, like definitely it was very scary. We were getting ready to shoot right as the pandemic was really ramping up after Christmas. And you know, we had 2 days to shoot it. One of those days was inside an apartment, and we had sort of an older cast member who plays.
That's right. Yeah, and she's in every shot of the film.
So it was very, you know, we had to take a lot of precautions, and that, from a producer and production standpoint, was not the most fun, even though Lucas is not mentioning it.
No,
Yeah,
yo
I sympathize.
como peor momento, yo tengo un problema que es que me encanta rodar con gente muy mayor.
Yeah, exactly. Lucas is just mentioning, probably the worst moment is Lucas loves to shoot with very, very old people.
Y además, por alguna razón que todavía no acabo de entender, tiendo a sacarlos desnudos.
And for some reason that really he doesn't understand, and neither do I, he insists on getting them naked out there.
En el momento es duro, es difícil de manejar, de repente, bueno, pues hasta a veces me da un poco de pena.
It can be a bit of an uncomfortable situation when you have an older actress and you have to make her up and she's sort of fully naked in a set. It's obviously, you know, you need a special sensibility to make sure everyone is comfortable.
En ese momento siempre me arrepiento.
And at that moment, he always regrets it, as does the rest of the crew, really.
Pero luego cuando lo veo montado, se me olvida y vuelvo a...
But eventually, when it's all sort of edited and put together, we can't forget about it.
I mean, there is something inherently cinematic about naked older people.
Yeah, hay algo muy cinemático, Lucas, de viejas.
Sí. Realmente yo creo que tiene algo que ver con que de verdad me da miedo la vejez o algo así. Hay algo de fondo ahí extraño.
There is something about a primal sort of fear as well of just in general getting old and old age, and that's a recurring theme in a lot of Lucas's work. There's a certain sort of primal fear, which I think goes back to what you were mentioning earlier of a child's point of view, of that primal fear you can sort of feel of old age, and as you get older, it keeps being there, sort of that primal fear.
It's something you're never really not aware of, definitely.
Yeah.
I presume when you're talking about the crew being uncomfortable, you're working, I'd imagine, with a skeleton crew or a very, very close set when you have your actors, with the older actors particularly, when they're naked.
Sí, Lucas, trabajamos con un crew pequeño, ¿no? Cuando está desnuda la anciana.
Absolutamente, es todo con el máximo respeto, con el máximo cuidado, sin duda.
Maximum respect and skeleton crew, especially for that last shot, which was the one that required obviously that, and Belén Rueda was very warm to her, and it was a very small crew.
That's what's important.
Bajo mi punto de vista es absolutamente necesario para la historia, o sea, no es para nada gratuito.
It's not gratuitous in any way. It's always sort of part of the story, so it's making sure also it feels that way to everyone, you know, to the actresses involved.
Excellent. Great. Alexandra?
I mean, to be honest, most of the best parts of it were often the hardest parts.
Sure, yeah.
So we shot 2 days, a half day without sound. So doing a lot of our inserts and Steadicam, but I mean, now everyone's seen it, so no spoilers, but we have prosthetics, and we have a very, very long Steadicam shot with all of our actors and using the whole space where everything is playing. And probably those two things were the most difficult to realize, but also really, truly the most fun, because, and the best parts, our actors, Demorge and Kate, really had an amazing chemistry and rehearsing that, and then we had a very nice and patient as well as talented Steadicam operator who when I told him, I think you should also walk down the stairs with them, could we do it that way, he just said yes. So things like that, and just watching all of the planning that was very carefully done and very difficult be realized. And then, you know, when we were doing the titular moment, just kind of all being gathered around DP, production designer, actors, hand, the whole gang. That was really, really fun, and it made me want to do it again immediately, even though prosthetics are not, they're more unpredictable than real people sometimes. So yeah,
it's a great prosthetic, and you sell it so well with just the methodical approach of using the anesthesia. I feel like that's the moment when there's an absolutely grounded sense of severity to the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess the other way I would answer this question is like figuring out the art piece as well, right? Like the conceptualization of it, where coming from the art world, I get kind of annoyed watching movies about it that are, the art is kind of silly or trite. And I mean, I love the tradition of Giallo films that are kind of set in the art world, obviously, like, Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Quiet Place in the Country is another really good one, like where, but I think recently maybe it can be kind of silly sometimes. And I like really wanted to spend a lot of time, me and Kate, conceptualizing what does this world look like? How do we make it heightened and kind of operatic and not take itself super seriously, but also be real? And so that was also hard, but gratifying.
I mean, it's feeling like it's coming from a place of knowledge. Absolutely. It feels very informed on the subject. And just the sense of archivism work almost being like its own kind of morgue in a certain way, if the work isn't allowed to be shared, the way it stays in these boxes. And there's something ghostly about that as well, like the creation being locked away and being boxed in and losing its identity.
Yeah, we got a lot of crates. We got a really big crate that she's carving on actually had just come back from Tate Modern, and it belonged to our production designer whose grandmother is an artist. And so he was a huge asset and my second set of eyes in that way, and like really knew that world.
Excellent. Is there anything you can tell us about your two leads? Because they're both fantastic.
Yes, there's so many things I can tell you about it. I mean, Kate is a fantastic actress who I've had the pleasure of knowing for 13 years and
cool.
college before we ever did films together. And she's in No Man of God now, the film that just came out about Ted Bundy, Amber Seeley, and she's also
right, the Spectre Vision. I've not seen it yet, but yeah.
Yeah, and she's also in former Cult member Hears Music for the First Time from Sundance last year, which is a really cool short. And Demorge is just a really great comic actor who I knew of, but he's also a great dramatic actor. And I'd seen him in this short called I Was There Too that Joey Izzo directed, and he gives a really amazing performance where he's in almost every shot. And he really understood the world of performance art when we talked and had really lived that life. And it was pretty clear he was that guy.
Excellent. And incidentally, you made a comment in an interview about the color, the darkness of screen blood, giving you an immediate sense of the film's tone, of the severity of a film's tone. And it's interesting because I absolutely subscribe to that. I feel like when the brighter blood tends to be, in films that'll be more splatstick in nature or whatnot, the earthier, the browner it gets, the uglier it is. Anytime I see darker blood in a film, I just feel there's a sense of gravity that comes in right away, where the filmmakers are not playing around.
Yeah, I feel like we tried to hit something in between, like an arty red that's still kind of heightened and not realistic, but not
not pink,
not Suspiria red, or like, I don't know, it's not this red,
right? Yeah, like the old 3M blood red or something like this,
like a paint red.
Yeah. That's great. So number 7, everyone's out of numerical order on the screen, so it's Christopher.
Hi. So two bits come to mind. so the first one, the sort of best moment was the most of this film, well, not most of this film, but it all sort of hinges on this like outdoor section looking through the peephole, and I wanted it to be super dark because it's all about lights going on and off. So I'm like, it has to be so dark. And so I find this location. I love this house, and I think it's perfect. But the big problem with it is they've on this road. They've just installed massive LED street lamps, and there is one directly outside the house.
Everything's looking blue.
Well, sort of, but also it was just more like I didn't want shadows. I just wanted it to go pitch black, and you just see
and you have an overhead wash almost.
Yeah, and so I'm like thinking I really want this location, but we've got to get that street lamp taken off. And the what's it called? The owner of the location was like, yeah, we've been trying to do it for 2 years because we think it interferes with the bats, and there's all this like wildlife around there. And I'm like, oh, it's never going to happen. So anyway, I chose that location, and I was like to Ben, the producer, I was like, we have to get that light off. And then the DOP and the producer were like, it's not the end of the world. Like we could do something with it and all that. I'm like, has to go off. Ben rings the council, and there's like no answer. But he leaves them a message, and we turn up on the day before the pre-light day, and somehow someone has come and from the council and turned it off, sent us an email and said, yeah, it'll be turned on in 5 days. So we had the street light was turned off, and I was like, that was one of my most like biggest requests, where I'm like, I feel like I'm being out of order here, but it has to be off. So that was like a great moment. But the worst moment, sort of funniest moment was there's a scene where there's like a live porn site, like a cam girl thing, and the person that was going to do it dropped out in the morning, and I had this idea that it was going to be an actual FaceTime, like sort of put on a web page so that he can react to it because it's live, so that's the last thing you think you can find is like someone who's going to be able to like do like get their top off and do like act like a porn like star or whatever. And Ben, the producer, like I'm shooting this scene and I'm like, I can't believe we haven't got anyone for the next scene. I'm shooting the scene in the kitchen with Susanna, and Ben's like, I think I can think of one person, so I'm in between takes, and Ben just hands me his laptop and goes, this is Daisy Badger. She's a childhood friend. I think she'll probably do it. And I'm like, oh, hi, Daisy. Yeah, like I've got this really weird request. I have no idea who she is, what her reaction to me is going to be like, and I'm just sat there on a sofa in between takes going like, yeah, so basically, have you got a banana? And can you take your top off? And can you like read these lines about sucking a banana and stuff like that? And I'm like, this is the most embarrassing moment of my life. I'm like in the middle of the set. I've never met this person before, but yeah, she was up for it, and it all went fine from that moment. But yeah, like that was when I was like, what is going on here?
Damn, that's that's quite an experience.
Yeah, it was funny.
All right, Kirsty?
The best and the worst. The best one would be to find the locations, but definitely the actors, they are very young. And we didn't have any time to rehearse. We did it in 3 days. We had 2 different locations. So everything there went really well. But yeah, when you have young actors and children, so I was really taken aback of how good they are. But I think the worst or the most nerve-wracking moment when I had to tie the youngest actor to the pole with real chain and and lock, and he had to stand there for quite some time. That was really hard, but he was brilliant. I mean, he was up for it. But again, working with young actors and
in these kinds of situations, particularly, it's how challenging it would have been.
Yeah, and it was really cold as well. And I had decided that he was not going to have any shoes.
Right.
So it was some challenges there.
it makes sense for the imagery. I mean, it creates a stronger sense of vulnerability. I mean, it was the right thing to do, absolutely. But I can imagine how that just compounds the anxiousness on set.
Yeah.
But you're saying he was comfortable with it? He was cool?
Well, he was very cool with it. But then again, you know, he's a child. He's like 10 years old. So
and
he
he was
doesn't
authority
really know.
Right.
It's my responsibility
Oof.
saying, okay, enough is enough. And it's a skeleton crew, you know, it's a short film.
Right.
So that was the hardest thing, I think. It was also very hard but also very rewarding to find the sound with the sound people, you know, to find the right sound for the
sound design is great.
Yeah, I really pleased with that. Yeah, I think that it's working with actors is the most rewarding, but also the hardest part, I think. Often all the other things is I find there's so many talented people that you work with, you know, on the crew, so it's also possible to solve, but the actors are, that's the hard part. And the rewarding part, because they are amazing. But yeah.
And going from the 2 shorts of yours that I've seen, I mean, you're consistently very strong with performance.
Oh,
so I mean, I'm sure you feel the pressure, but you are really great with actors.
Okay.
Just saying.
Thank you.
Cheers. So let's open to some questions from the audience. So what y'all can do, for anyone who's tuning in for the first time, there's the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Write some things into the Q&A field and you will be in touch with us. There's already one from Mario. To the guys of the Tenet, what came first, the metaphor of the story or the plot? And how did you get Ana Belén?
Lucas,
we already went to the second part, but the first part.
Yeah. Lucas, ¿qué llegó primero? Un poco la metáfora, o sea, la idea principal, central de la trama, o la historia, y cómo conseguiste a Belén, que ya hemos contestado un poquito.
Sí, lo primero que vino es el recurso. Yo creo que es una idea de recurso.
The concept came first. It's definitely like a concept-driven.
Right.
Una vez que das con esa idea, armas el resto de la historia.
Then once you have that idea, it's like, how do you kind of stretch it and build up on that?
Y cómo conseguía a Belén, bueno, lo primero es que le gustó el guión.
Yeah, Belén, the first thing is she liked the short, the script for the short, and the letter we had mentioned. She really responded to that.
Y luego, lo que he contado antes, de verdad, no era un chiste, escribí una carta desde mi corazón hacia ella y quiero pensar que le gustó.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just like a normal letter, it was like a bit of a out there kind of weird love letter to her. I think really.
I mean, you have to flatter your actors. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, it was a flattering, and it was definitely a how do you.
And she warrants that flattery.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and like we mentioned, the fact that she's always open to try to work with upcoming filmmakers and does shorts once in a while. So you know, we knew that about her. So that
hay que usar todas las armas que tenemos.
Every weapon we have in our arsenal.
Do you remember her initial reaction or comments when she saw that monster effect?
Sus comentarios iniciales cuando vio el monstruo, Lucas.
Recuerdo que se quedó muy impresionada. Es como, wow, o sea, vamos en serio con esto.
She was taken aback. She was definitely
like,
whoa, okay. I mean, of course, especially when you saw her, you know, without the proper lighting, it is very impactful. Yeah.
Fantastic. So to the entire gang, what do you think about theaters maybe going away with streaming services coming into dominance? I guess we can go from number 1 around the circle.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, hopefully not. They're not going away.
That's kind of, yeah. I didn't want to lead the question. I just wanted to read it pure, but yeah, I don't think that theaters are going to go away. I think they're becoming more marginalized to a certain point. We all know enough cinephiles who still consider, I mean, I have a great home theater system. My whole basement is a front projection cinema now. And it's, you know, with not that much money, under $5,000, you can make a gorgeous, gorgeous home theater system that is actually better specs than most mainstream cinema chains today. for image, for sound, but it is still not a shared experience with strangers. It's still not the same thing. Sorry, not to answer the question for anybody. I have to go in a bit of a spiel there because I truly don't think, I think theaters are becoming not what they were before in terms of they don't have that special place in pop culture that they did when most of us were growing up. But they're still an important part of pop culture. And for anybody who genuinely loves film, I think the experience of seeing films with friends and strangers in a big, big space, a giant communal experience, shared discovery. I mean, there's just, you can't really replicate. You can have 20 friends over. It's not the same. It's still a different kind of a thing. So I personally don't think theaters are going to go away. But anyways, yeah, I had to jump in when you said, I don't think they're going anywhere. It's like, yes, man, I don't think they're going anywhere either. And I kind of couldn't hold back. So I'll now step away and let you actually answer the question.
But it will, maybe, I mean, it will change a little bit, but I think they won't, they will be here. They have to. I think it's a big part of the, society, basically. I think they will survive, but maybe they will change and be, it will change. People have, like you have good entertainment systems at home, but it will never replace the actual experience, I think, of going to the cinema.
100%. Anyone else want to have comments on that? Or
I think if anything, like,
sorry.
You might have maybe some of the bigger chains might become a little smaller, but more local theaters, I think, might thrive. Theaters showing classic films and just a more specific type of theater that really premiums the experience of being in the theater and is a little less sort of mass chain like. At least that's sort of something I've seen. That kind of smaller theater I've seen kind of thrive in the last few months. So hopefully.
Same in Canada as well. The micro cinemas and the indie cinemas, they have a devoted following. There's already a sense of community that goes to those places. And of course their overhead is a lot lower. They're able to get by with, if they have 3 screens, if one screen does okay, the other 2 can be the most radical, types of programming choices, and it doesn't really, they'll break even. They'll be fine. I think that's
theaters are always going to be the best place to watch a film, but I think the streaming services have really kind of opened things up for a lot of low budget filmmakers now, as a way to kind of get your film out there. Things like Amazon Prime is just, there's so many great films that you probably wouldn't see otherwise.
And there's so many more opportunities for production. I mean, you look at how many films Netflix are financing from the bottom up, not just acquiring, and the amount of freedom and latitude that they give to their filmmakers. I mean, that is incredibly impressive. And I will say on mine, I've been programming now since 1997 at Fantasia. And in that period, when I first came on, the majority of my favorite films that weren't from within North America or the UK, the minute they weren't shot in the English language, the odds of them getting a proper release in North America that weren't recut or rescored or dubbed, or something. I mean, so many of my favorite films did not get distribution. We'd have to hunt down bootlegs to find stuff. And it was very uncommon, for good foreign films that were outside the box, and that they weren't prestige films of the sort that the few mini major distributors would embrace. They would just fall between the cracks, even if they were making a fortune in their homelands and had a huge commercial audience. So today, I mean, in large part because of the streaming services, very little doesn't get acquired within months of a title being announced. I mean, almost everything gets released. And on my end, what I find the most disturbing is that, I mean, I love the ease of access and the amount of stuff that's available, but I do worry about the speed of distribution, where films are acquired so fast with a pipeline mindset, and they're turned over, and like a film will be, before a film's even had its world premiere, you'll hear an announcement of the title, and you'll hear an acquisition announcement within months of that. And in that acquisition announcement, there's a release date, and it's within like 5 weeks. and it's, you look at some of the VOD listings of brand new films, and it's almost like the memorial list of the fallen war dead, but they all don't have identities. They just go on and on. And these things, they drop onto the platform. Some of them are properly promoted, and the majority of them somehow are not. They just show up randomly without any pre-existing awareness or anticipation. And within days, they're just paved over by another dozen. And you know, films that still cost a substantial amount of money to make and to acquire. And I mean, they're not throwaway titles at all. I mean, somebody actively at any of these companies actively loved the movie and sought it out and acquired it. And it's just being, for lack of a better word, dumped in many cases. That's what worries me the most about streaming, I feel. I mean, it's this weird double-edged sword. There's so much more is available, but so much less has an identity. And that's where I feel cinemas will never go away, because cinemas immediately, they guarantee a film a certain moment of platform and focus where people are talking about them and they are thinking about them ideally. Anyways, anyone else has more things to say? I can't help but rant on this topic because it's just so central to me.
I think
there's really sorry, Jorge, go ahead.
I mean, I think it's very similar with what's happening with like the discussion between TV series and films. I think like right now people also want to return to watch more like films. Like as an example, I'm getting tired of like TV series. Like for me, there's like many TV series, so I don't know where to choose. And when I choose something, sometimes they don't have the quality that I really want in a TV series. Like it's not like 5 years ago that there was like 30, and those 30 like you can choose, like, you know, you knew which ones had like certain kind of like tone and stuff. So yeah, and it's the same. It was the same with film. Like there was like, for example, in Mexico, Cinepolis, which like just show Avengers in like 10 theaters, and like they just have like 5 other small, like for the small films. So like they were just selling food. And those are the ones that are being affected by like a pandemic. But I think people that really want to go and watch films from all over the world, they are the ones that are going to return to the movie theaters, I guess.
The whole streaming thing is really kind of a double-edged sword, because it's like, it's really an expansion of the original video market and continued proof that commercialism ruins everything. You know, once you up until the 80s, the only way you could watch a movie was to go to a movie theater. And so every movie that came out was special in one way or another, unless it was a TV movie. But then TV movies, you have to show up at 7 o'clock on Friday because that's when they played it. If you missed it, you missed it. That was it. And so there was always a sense of, and I think that that's really what's getting lost, even with movies still going to the theaters. And it's one of the reasons that audiences are becoming more rowdy when you go to movie theaters. People are talking through movies. We get that all the time here, where people feel like they're in their living room because they can go to their living room and watch a movie. Whereas you used to go to a movie theater, and the reason you were there is to watch a movie, but that's kind of culturally starting to disappear. So when the video market came out in the 80s and VHSs started to be produced, then people could start watching movies at home, and that was a really big thrill. But then now that it's just, it was so successful that now anybody can make a movie, and everybody does make movies, and everybody buys movies and fills up the streamers. And so it's just like this race for constant content and to stay ahead in the game of trying to get your content out before other people's content, or I've got this much content, or I've got this much content. And like, it becomes this war of just like volume and how much can you produce. It's like, like rock and roll in the 80s, where it was like, at first it was like this hardcore movement with the crazy hair, and people are like, what's happening? And David Bowie's insane. And then it turns into essentially boy bands, where labels are like manufacturing these acts, and you lose all sense of identity and you lose all sense of art, because it's just like, pump it out, like you're just get the last dollars drained from this event before it dies and everyone loses respect for it. And I always fear that that's where streamers are kind of losing. But at the same time, the technology is there and people are going to adapt to it. And I think that the more that streamers pay attention to curating really great content, people can access movies that they never would have even known about before. And that's amazing. It's one of the things I really like about the online film festival thing, that, if I couldn't go to Montreal and watch this program, I can watch it now and be able to enjoy films I would never be able to see otherwise. It's one of the things I love about film community.
I mean,
absolutely,
the accessibility that it brings along is just incredible. There's definitely that.
I'd be remiss not to mention like seeing Cam or Come True, movies that premiered here.
Yeah.
That I don't know if I would have, it's amazing that those films have a life on streaming and are weird and wonderful. And there is a lot of opportunity also being created on the streamers, just to, play devil's advocate to the.
Oh, it's 100% true. I mean, Netflix bought Cam out of Fantasia 2 years ago. It was one of my favorite of their indie acquisition titles. And that was when they pushed really hard and it got covered in all the right places. When they really baby care the films that they love, they can do such incredible things. And the fact that so many small towns in Canada, the United States, really everywhere, just don't have cool alternative theaters that would play these films in the first place. It just would be the new Mission Impossible or the new Avengers on every single screen. So I definitely appreciate all of that. I mean, I just wish that they had more time to let the films get an identity and focus for all of them. They tend to have 12 and there's one that they cherry pick and treat well. But yeah, when they do, thank God. And so when you see like the Criterion Channel, I mean, there's so many filmmakers. It's hard to believe that in the 90s, like a director like Alex Laglacia, who was like an A-list director in most of Europe, his work was almost entirely not distributed in North America, which is astonishing to think. And in the streaming world, his work is available absolutely everywhere with every kind of language subtitle, mostly 4K transfers, proper 5.1 sound. I mean, it is miraculous. There's so much good as well. I agree with you. So here, I'm just seeing amazing answers. Okay. Did anyone have more things they want to say about cinemas? Okay, I feel like we covered that quite well. Did you have questions for each other? It's one thing I really do enjoy when all the filmmakers can be here in a group like this. No,
I'll throw one out to the guys at the Tenant. Is your story based on any kind of actual folklore, or did you completely come up with that yourselves?
Lucas, ¿está basado en algo la historia? It's not, but I'll let Lucas give an answer. O sea, en algo de folklore, alguna historia.
Totalmente inventado.
Yeah, it's just sort of made up. Completely made up.
It really felt like one of those, if you're reading Grimm's fairy tales or any of those kinds of, world folklore tales, I was betting with my girlfriend whether or not it was really based on actual folklore, because it felt so real and so cultural. It was really, really cool and really creepy. I mean, just like the idea that someone just attaches to their leg. it was really, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think there's a sense of sort of, we all have our leg kind of go numb once in a while, right? If you sit on it wrong or sleep on it wrong, and that felt like a cool jumping off point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
And it touches on doctors' apathy towards people who have chronic conditions in an interesting way. It's brief, but it feels like it's there.
Right. Yeah, there's a little of that. Hay gente que tenga condiciones crónicas.
Yeah. Sí. De hecho, si ya estamos pensando en formar el largo de esto, cómo sería, y va un poco por ahí.
Yeah, but I mean, we're always shooting up ideas of how it could be as a feature, and there's definitely that is sort of something that is at the core of where that could go, very specifically that aspect of it.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a giant audience that would be responsive to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I realize it's incredibly bad hours for half of you here, so I won't keep you any longer, but thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
For having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed everybody's shorts.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
Absolutely.
That's always good to hear.
Good.
Thank you.
All right,
And thanks for
well,
moderating, Mitch. That was really fun.
Thanks.
I
man.
love this stuff. It's
I can tell.
just endlessly rewarding.
We're way
Cool.
into it. It's awesome.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's not 4 a.m. here, which is a plus.
Definitely. Yeah, it's only 10:30 for me. Come on, guys. Where are you going?
Cheers. All right, well, stay in touch, everyone. Be well, and I hope to see new work from you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.